I've been waiting, I've been waiting, I've been waiting for someone like you. And I don't know what it is, but it's something you do.
Hello friends, and welcome to the end of 2019. As you can see, we are going to be talking about the best books of 2019 for me. So these are just my opinion. If you hated one of these books, cool. If you thought I should have loved a different book, that's cool too. These are not in order of like how I loved them or how much I enjoyed them. I'm actually just going on my Goodreads and going through the year and looking at all my 5 stars and then picking from them which ones were just like the best I cannot get out of my head. Let's get started. And also one more thing to mention is, you guys know I do a lot of Audible books, or I check them out from the library. I own a lot of books that I really need to read next year, but a lot of these I don't have a copy of because I've either got it on Audible or Libby, or I checked it out from the library, so they're like turned in a long time ago. So most of them will be on the screen, but oh well, it is what it is. Alright, so the first book that I finished of 2019 that I loved was actually a nonfiction, right? Like, who am I? That's crazy. It was Grant by Ron Chernow. Don't know how to pronounce it, but you know, it's on the screen somewhere. There might be more room over there, but and it is exactly what it sounds like. It's just an autobiography about Ulysses S. Grant, who is one of my favorite historical figures. Like, I love learning about Ulysses and Lincoln and World War. Now I sound like a dummy. And the Civil War. And so, like, one of my favorite all-time books is Mrs. Grant and Madame Jewel, and it follows Mrs. Grant / Ulysses S. Grant and their story. That one is historical fiction by Jennifer Chiaverini, but ever since I read that book, I just fell in love with him. That was like a couple years ago, and so I try to read anything that has to do with Ulysses S. Grant, including this one. So the next memorable book was Spilled Milk by K.L. Randis, and that one was based on a true story as well. Can you hear the rain? That's awesome. It hasn't rained in a couple, it rained last night, but we haven't had rain during the day like to enjoy in a few days. So, but it follows her story. It's very like heavy trigger warning for sexual assault and domestic violence, and like it's a very disturbing story. But I do follow her on social media, and she's just such an amazing and inspiring person that, yeah, as soon as I read her story, I was like, I need to find her and, you know, all this stuff. So I've been following her, and she's like one of my favorite people to stalk, no, to follow on social media. But yeah, it's about her childhood with her abusive father and other family dynamics. So if you haven't read that one, you really should, but there is a heavy trigger warning for sexual assault, rape, abuse. Like, it's bad. Oh, I should be putting the dates on here. So I finished that one April 4th. So the next one that I loved, okay, and this one shocked me because it was just a free book from, I was just looking for something to listen to while I was doing, you know, my thing. And sometimes I just grab one if it sounds semi-interesting. I'm like, okay, whatever, let's just pass the time. It was called I'm Fine and Neither Are You. And interestingly enough, December, it's on the free Audibles, or the buy one, get one for your free credit. I don't know. But it was so good. I was shocked to see how much I had loved that book. I'd never heard of it. I've never heard of anyone talking about it. It follows a married couple who, they seem to have everything together, but that's just on the surface, typical. And so they decide to both write a list of things that they would love their partner to change. And of course, it seemed like a good idea, but then even though they're both trying, it ends up backfiring and things get worse. You know, but I'm not going to say if they make it or not in the end. You should read it and find out. And I finished that book on April 12th. The next amazing read was in July. And that was Mrs. Everything by Jennifer Weiner. And I just love her. Her writing is so amazing. That one follows sisters and their dynamic. So it's two sisters who follow very different paths. They grew up in the 1950s. One of them becomes like the wild child, free spirit, like peace, love, all that stuff during Vietnam. And the other one becomes like a proper wife and mother in Connecticut. But they're still really close. It just shows their dynamic being so different. But being as I love my sisters dearly, and sometimes we are pretty different, I don't know, it just really resonated with me, and I absolutely loved that book, so you should check it out. And I finished that one July 23rd. Oh my gosh. Okay, all right, the next one, it was Our Little Lies by Sue Watson, which I still have on Audible. I loved this book. Like, I picked it up because, yeah, I read the description and it sounded good, like interesting, you know. It is just so good. It's about another marriage, okay, full of secrets and lies, and the wife thinks everything is perfect until one day her husband says something about his assistant. The way he says her name, Caroline, all of a sudden, like, the wife becomes super like, who's Caroline? What's going on here? I could tell something's up. Well, the last paragraph. Let me just read you the last paragraph, because then you're gonna be like, what? Says, it's almost by accident that Marianne starts to learn more about Caroline, but once she started, she can't stop, because what she finds out makes her wonder. Is the question she should be asking not should she be jealous, but should she be scared? Yeah, that was a really good one. I loved that book. Like, it was probably one of my top 5 books this year. Oh, and I finished that one July 31st. So July was a really good month. So we are cruising down the list. Oh my gosh, yeah, in September, actually on September 11th, I finished, oh, and I have this one, wow. I finished The White Queen by Philippa Gregory. I have talked about her before. She writes amazing historical fiction. She writes it in a different time frame than what I used to think I was into. I love World War II, Civil War, the 50s, anything from the 1900s is like what I thought was my jam. No, this one is 1464, the 1400s, with King Edward and the Tudors and all that. But like, the way she writes is phenomenal. I love hearing these stories. And The White Queen on, oh yeah, it was on what, HBO, was amazing. And I happened to watch that first before I read the book. So I watched the show, and the show actually still holds up to the book. They're both amazing. I highly suggest. This is not the first one in the series. So far I've read 4 of the books in this series. Kai wants to say hi. Hold on. And I'm gonna keep going with them because they're so good, like, honestly. And then next, oh yeah, the next 5-star, September was an amazing month. All right, so the next book that I gave 5 stars that I loved was You by Carolyn Kepnes. Bye. And okay, I've seen people talking about this, how it's like problematic. It's like problematic because it does follow a main character who is, like, I'm being honest, he's completely insane. All right, he's like a stalker. That's what this book is about. He stalks this girl, and like the twists and turns are just, sorry, I have a 4-year-old, he won't be quiet. So the twists and turns in these, like, it is so suspenseful. Like, you're sitting there on the edge of your seat, like, girl, wake up, he's following you, just stop. It is amazing. And actually, we're gonna watch the Netflix series soon. We started it one night, but it is highly inappropriate for children, and the kids were in the room, so I was like, no, we'll have to start this another night. And we just haven't since, and that's been almost a month. But now that I'm talking about it, I really need to start it because I've heard the show was really good too. And people are like, this just, a lot of people are complaining because it's like glorifying stalking and abusive relationships. Which, I mean, I can kind of see where they're coming from. Like, I get it. I know what you're talking about, but this is fiction. And not only that, but does that mean Stephen King can't write about murder? Dean Koontz can't write about anything. Like, that could go for anything. So it is a work of fiction. It's not glorifying anything, it is telling a story. It's no different than any other story. I don't know if they were just triggered because of their experiences or something, but this book was bomb, I think. And so I finished that in September 16th. Ironically enough, the sequel is the next one. It's called Hidden Bodies, also by Caroline Kepnes. And I finished that one in October. And that one I'm not going to go into because I don't want to spoil anything from the first one. Just know it is a sequel and it wasn't as good as the first one. It still got 5 stars, but the first one just really gave you the creeps. But then the second one, I guess it was super good too, but it kind of took me back a couple times. I was like, wait, whoa, now there's 2 crazies. What is happening? So those were 2 of my favorites. The next series that I read and loved was Orange. It is a manga series and it's phenomenal. I love it so much. And it's amazing because in these books she has another series that I didn't even know about until later. I just thought it was sneak peeks or something, but no, there's like an entire series at the end of these books. And so this one follows a group of school friends who get letters from their future selves saying you need to change this and this and this and this every day because it will in turn save your friend who gets into an accident and dies, and then he will be your friend later in life still. And then of course as they are doing this, they realize that changing the past will alter their future. So, you know, it's like a coin toss on, do you really want to mess with what's supposed to happen? Or, you know what I'm saying, okay? Do you want to alter what could be your life to save someone else's? So they have to grapple or struggle with the fact that changing the past will of course affect their futures, and perhaps someone else will die if they do this or that, you know what I mean? So you follow them making these decisions, and it was just a really cute story. It sounds really heavy, but like most of the story was really sweet and I loved it. The last book I'm going to talk about is Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough. And it's another thriller. And this one, okay, so she meets a guy at a bar. They kiss, they have like a little connection, nothing else happens. And then she goes to work on Monday morning and she finds out that is her new boss. Awkward. And then she runs into, the next day or something, she runs into a lady named Adele and finds out that is his wife. And they become friends, but they get entangled and it is so crazy and intense. Oh my gosh. And you find yourself one moment, you're like, oh, I'm team Adele, team wife. And then you're like, no, I'm the team of the girl from the bars, Louise, team Louise. The twist at the end of the story shocked me. It shocked me. And this was the best thriller I read all year, I think, easily, because it was crazy. So, like, honestly, just thinking about it blows my mind. Like, if any of these books on this thing that you want to pick up, it's this one. Okay, get it. Go get it, read it, enjoy it. That one I finished December 3rd. And that was the last like amazing read I had. As you guys can tell though, most of the books on my favorites were thrillers or mystery, you know, all that. Fantasy, while I had some most anticipated books in series, I had like 3 or 4 of them. They kind of, most of them fell flat. They weren't as good as the previous books, which is really disappointing, but I have high hopes for 2020. So those were some of my favorite books. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I cannot wait to see what adventures we go on in the book world in 2020, in the new decade. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.
The clock says 3, but the night's brand new. Let's set it to 2.